So we're officially into November of 2024, we've just had a Thursdoid development update from the Indie Stone, and if the team are going to meet their original goal of releasing Build 42 this year, we're cutting things a little close at this point. So in this video, I'm going to be going over everything you need to know from the Thursdoid that was just released as of the 31st of October. As always, if you want to give that a read for yourself, there's a link in the description. Like and subscribe for more Project Zomboid stuff, and without further ado, let's get into the Thursdoid. Okay, first things first, I want to get this out of the gate nice and early because I know a bunch of people will just be tuning in to see if there are any release dates. Unfortunately, we're not really any closer to knowing when the update will drop at this time. We do hear from some external testers and get their thoughts on the current state of Build 42. We also hear about where the team is right now with development, but there's no release dates just yet, and I wanted to get that out of the way. So if you're just hanging around for that, now you know, and you can get on with the rest of your day. Alrighty, so as I said, some external testers have been trying Build 42, and the team make a note here that overall, the initial feedback has been positive, which has been a huge relief for them to hear. They follow this up, however, by saying there is still much to do. In the coming weeks, they hope to get more and more feedback on in-depth systems like animals and the new crafting setup, then adjust accordingly based on that feedback. I will say my concern here is that we're cutting things very close to the end of 2024, which was their original deadline, and knowing how long this stuff takes, I don't think there's any way we're going to see Build 42 in November, and I honestly think we might be in for a delay announcement sometime in the future. Of course, this is just my speculation based on my experience and prior knowledge. It shouldn't be taken as anything more than that. The developers have split the feedback into sections, and the first of those is comments around lighting, darkness, and atmosphere. There are more comments than I'm going to read here in this video, so if you want to read them all, use the link in the description. While I read a couple of them, we're going to include some new footage we were shown in the dev blog from the new upcoming sanatorium location, which looks incredibly spooky, just right for this time of year, and is based on the real-life Waverly Hills. So the first comment reads, "In regards to the darkness, I think it's perfect. I love the horror feeling of it. You really actually fully need a flashlight. You think, oh, thank I have some light, rather than, ugh, this barely lights anything. There was a time flashlights barely had a reason to be in the game at all, so this is better." Now, I actually really like this one. Flashlights currently have zero use unless you're both inside a building with low natural lighting and the power is already off. This comment, however, makes it sound like, to me, darkness is now going to be a very real thing that we have to plan around. Our sleep schedule will be more important as a result, and how we use our time during those early morning hours or late evening hours. Flashlights are going to be a much more useful item than they are right now, and finding one when looting will give us another dopamine hit. Here's the next comment received from a tester. "I found I wasn't running into zombies like I usually would, randomly scattered throughout the place, until an alarm came, and that was absolutely brutal. I didn't think it would draw so many, and the darkness is unforgiving too. I was scrambling for lampposts for their spotlight, trying to fight off what was left chasing me until I was exhausted and finally able to rest." So overall, it seems like the external testers did enjoy the new lighting and the new vibe that lighting brings. I definitely feel like right now, at least, nighttime isn't really a problem in Project Zomboid, and perhaps it should be, especially since we're going to see a new lighting system that's going to offer more realistic lighting both indoors and outdoors. Next up, we've got some feedback from testers on zombies and their distribution. During these comments, we'll play some footage comparing Build 41's lighting and zombie distribution against that of Build 42. Truly, the changes to the grouping are so good. Probably the most quality of life change for me. It really makes the world feel more alive in a way. Instead of having zombies spread out everywhere and having to do the lure away, ball up, rinse and repeat just to get an area, now it really feels like I can sneak around and explore areas while losing a group instead of knowing that I'm going to run into a ton more and just shouting instead to get it over with. Now, I really like this comment because how many people do you know that have tried Project Zomboid, found themselves attracting loads of zombies within the first few minutes, and then basically running around until they're out of stamina and eventually getting eaten alive, which leads to them them leaving the game. To me, it sounds like this system will allow newer players to get started a little bit easier and at least allow them to get a couple of days under their belt before dying instead of a couple of minutes. I can see this also making a lot of difference to sandbox settings, and we might actually be able to achieve a proper sense of a slowly increasing infection now. Okay, on to the next one. Just started a new game in West Point with the aim of trying Louisville, and notice the streets outside are very quiet, with the occasional Zeds dotted about, and it gave off a cool 28 days later vibe. Ran around building to building thinking this is too easy, nothing is stopping me, when after bashing 15 Zeds heads in, muscle strain kicked in. Felt like a cool way of setting atmosphere without being too easy, feels pretty balanced so far. Now, one thing that I'd love to know about these kinds of comments are how much experience these testers had with the game. A minor concern of mine in this case is that these testers might be new players, for example, and as such might have a different understanding of difficulty levels to many others. If, however, these testers are relatively experienced with the game, comments like these are a great sign that we're going to see a slowly ramping infection in rural areas, and a slowly ramping difficulty level as a result of that. The developers note that they've put a lot more thought into how, where, and why zombies spawn in the locations they do in Build 42, and so far their testers seem to like it. Their concerns now are that rural areas might be a bit too empty, but they're going to address that further as more feedback comes in. To round off this section, the developers shared a collection of more general feedback, which I'll make sure is displayed on screen now so you can pause the video if you like and give some of them a read. One big one here that I really like is that someone said they've nailed the traits and that Smoker is no longer an overpowered selection. This has been a big issue in Project Zomboid for me. There's always a meta selection of traits that so many people just default to, and it'd be really cool to see that shaken up with the new update, at least for a little while. Now, so far, we've heard a lot of positives about the update, but the developers do share that, as with any playtest, it's not all going to be sunshine and roses. In the next section of the blog post, they talk about areas they believe they need to improve as a result of recent testing. The developers are hoping to obtain some more feedback from elongated play sessions, which again gives me concerns with regards to when Build 42 will actually release, with the goal being in those longer play tests there can be more interactions with crafting and animal husbandry. There was some critical feedback on zombie awareness, the discomfort system, and much more on some new additions that the developers want to keep an eye on. The next section of the blog post is titled Combat Tightening. The team say that in the test sessions it was revealed that some combat irregularities will need to be addressed that resulted in unfair deaths. This has led to a deep dive into both some issues that have been introduced with Build 42, but also some legacy problems from Build 41 that deal with zombie targeting. They hope that the results of this deep dive and the fixes to come will bring more consistency to combat in general. Next up is crafting. The user interface needs a bit more love and care, which the developers say they'll turn their attention to once the new building menu is complete. We're given a video of the crafting UI in its current state in a video that the team put together for Halloween, showcasing the use of a spinning wheel. Quick note here about this, the skeletal animals will obviously not be in vanilla and the crafting speeds are not final. Following this video, the developers give us a quote that I think is best for me to read out word for word to get their message across as intended. It's a long one, so we'll display it on screen as well. For the past half a year or so, we have had 6 people working on our new vision for crafting. As regular readers will know, delays with it have been a primary reason that things have been held back. During Build 42 development, we didn't build in enough safeguards should key members of the team become unavailable due to illness or personal matters. This is now very much a lesson that has been learned, and alongside new production and support staff who have been brought in over the past 6 months, this is not a bear trap we intend to step into ever again. We're really sorry that it has led to such an understandable frustration in the community. We are currently very happy with the progress being made by the crafting team and can't wait for the time at which you can all take their work out for a spin. Now, one thing I will say here is that it's great lessons are being learned, but this, at least to me, sort of comes as a bit of a hollow apology when we're 8 weeks away from the end of the year that the developers have said Build 42 would land in, and in the second to last Thursdoid, we still don't know whether that deadline is being met. It's great to see them taking some accountability for why it's taken such a long time, but we've heard our fair share of apologies and explanations. Now it's time for some actual action, at least in my mind. It's time to tell the community whether or not they're going to see Build 42 this year, and if not, I think like they're owed a set, firm deadline at this stage. Anyway, again, that's just my opinion, and I'm sure people will disagree, and that is absolutely fine. Let's get on to the last couple of sections in this dev blog. We get a status update on Animals next, with the developers stating that they are currently in polish and bug fix mode while they wait on extended playtesting. They would really like to improve the current requirements for players to draw their own animal zone around enclosures to ensure that the animals within mate, feed, and develop while the player is off screen. During the development of Build 42, the team has expanded, so too has its pool of knowledge, and the team now feel they can look to automate this process, removing the need for manual zoning. If they can make this work, it will likely be an addition to the unstable beta after the launch of Build 42. One of the things the devs mentioned they received feedback on from testing was zombie awareness, and in the next section of this blog they talk about what they'd like to do in order for this to flow a little bit better in gameplay. It's another thing that will probably come during Build 42 on the unstable branch, not at the launch itself, but they're essentially working towards zombie senses taking into account things like lighting, low obstacles such as fences and bushes, and weather effects like rain or fog. That's on top of all the current modifiers like sneak levels, zombie focus, and direction of facing. I really like the sound of this because right now fog doesn't really do anything for the player other than make life harder. It would be kind of neat to see that work both ways, where yes, we can see less, but we find it easier to sneak around on account of the zombies also seeing less. As for the last item in this dev blog, we get a look at some new and improved versions of readable literature and advertisements that are coming to Build 42. Some of the feedback given to the devs has suggested that even with the 90s look, the graphic design for these adverts could be improved, and as such, a friend of the team has been working on what they feel are far improved versions of these items, and I'd be inclined to agree. I'm looking forward to using these items when choosing my next safe house after the update's release. So that's it from me in this one, folks, and that's everything for this dev blog, but there was a lot to talk about in this one, so if you've got any thoughts on the content of this Thursdoid, drop it down in the comments and have your say. We've just started a brand new wipe on our Patreon server for the month, so if you're looking to try Project Zomboid in multiplayer before the release of Build 42 breaks a bunch of mods temporarily, there's a link in the description for that too, where you can join our community for as little as £3 a month. We host monthly events, put together different themes for our wipes, commission our own mods, and much, much more. Special thank you to all of my existing patrons for their continued support, and I will see you all in the next one.